Welcome, dear listener, to a peaceful journey through the history of Final Fantasy VII. I'm your host, and tonight we'll explore the fascinating events that shaped this beloved story. Make yourself comfortable as we drift through tales of ancient civilizations, powerful corporations, and remarkable individuals who changed the course of their world. Let's begin our story thousands of years ago, with the original inhabitants of this remarkable planet, the Cetra. Also known as the Ancients, these peaceful people lived in harmony with their world, able to hear what they called the planet's voice. They were nomadic by nature, traveling from place to place, healing and nurturing the planet as they went. Picture, if you will, these ancient people, moving across vast green plains under starlit skies, their connection to the planet guiding their every step. The Cetra didn't just hear the planet's voice, they engaged in a continuous dialogue with it through what they called the spirit energy, which we would later know as the life stream. In their daily lives, the Cetra practiced remarkable abilities that seemed like magic to others. They could coax plants to grow in barren soil, find pure water deep underground, and even heal the planet's wounds with their gentle touch. Their most sacred ability was called spirit walking, a deep meditation where they could directly commune with the consciousness of the planet itself. The Cetra built remarkable cities as they traveled, though they never stayed in one place for too long. The most magnificent of these was the Forgotten Capital, hidden away in the northern reaches of the world. Its buildings were grown rather than built, created through a harmony between Cetran magic and natural crystal formations. The city's crowning achievement was the Crystal Prayer Room, where the most gifted among them could gather to combine their abilities and speak directly with the planet. Not all humans of that time were Cetra. There were others who chose to settle in permanent communities, forsaking the nomadic lifestyle and the deep connection to the planet. The Cetra didn't judge these people, who they called the spirit folk. Instead, they would often visit these settlements, sharing their healing knowledge and helping crops grow, though they kept the deepest secrets of their abilities to themselves. The Cetran understanding of life and death was profound and beautiful. They knew that when living things died, they returned to the planet's spirit energy, bringing with them all their memories and experiences. This wasn't seen as an ending, but as part of an eternal cycle. They believed their purpose was to nurture this cycle, helping the planet grow richer in spirit energy with each passing generation. Their daily rituals were centered around this connection to the planet. Each morning, they would gather in circles to sing songs that resonated with the planet's frequency. Their children were taught from an early age to quiet their minds and listen for the planet's whispers. They used no written language, instead passing down their wisdom through oral traditions and songs that carried deep spiritual truths. The Cetra understood weather patterns, stellar movements, and the planet's natural cycles with an intimacy we can hardly imagine today. They could sense approaching storms days in advance, predict seasonal changes, and even feel disturbances in the planet's spirit energy that might indicate future calamities. This deep connection made them the planet's natural guardians, a role they embraced with humble dedication. It was a simpler time, though not without its own challenges. The Cetra faced natural disasters, harsh winters, and the occasional conflicts with those who didn't understand their ways. Yet through it all, they maintained their peaceful nature, always seeking to heal rather than harm, to understand rather than judge. About 2,000 years before our main story, on what began as a peaceful evening, the Cetra felt an unprecedented disturbance in the planet's spirit energy. Looking to the stars, they witnessed a terrible sight. A bright light streaking across the night sky, trailing what appeared to be black flames. This was heaven's dark harbinger, the being we would come to know as Jenova. The impact was catastrophic. The northern continent shuddered as Jenova crashed into its surface, creating a wound so deep in the planet that it would never fully heal. The northern crater. The collision sent shockwaves across the entire world, and the Cetra felt the planet's pain as if it were their own. The impact threw massive amounts of debris into the atmosphere, causing years of unusual weather patterns and dim skies. When the dust settled, something emerged from the crater. Jenova had taken a form that would appear familiar and trustworthy to the Cetra, that of a beautiful woman with long, silvery hair. She approached their settlements with seemingly peaceful intentions, speaking of sharing knowledge and power. Some Cetra were cautious, sensing something amiss in the planet's reactions to this visitor, while others were curious about this strange new being. Jenova's true nature soon revealed itself in the most horrifying way. Those who came into contact with her began to change. It started subtly, heightened strength and awareness, unusual physical changes. But these gifts were actually a virus, one that would gradually transform its victims into monstrous reflections of Jenova herself. The process was not just physical. The infected would lose their ability to hear the planet's voice, replaced by Jenova's own alien whispers. The virus spread in two ways: through direct contact with Jenova and through the infected themselves. The transformed Cetra would seek out others, drawn by an irresistible compulsion to spread the infection. What made this especially tragic was that the infected retained their memories, meaning family members and friends would approach their loved ones, only to spread the virus further. The Cetra's connection to the planet proved to be both their greatest defense and their heaviest burden. They could sense the wrongness in those who were infected, but they also felt every death, every transformation, as a fresh wound in the planet's consciousness. They realized that Jenova wasn't just attacking them, it was attempting to corrupt the very life stream itself. In their desperation, the Cetra discovered something crucial about their enemy. Jenova possessed an extraordinary ability they called the gift of the mimetic, the power to read memories and assume the form of those it encountered. This power allowed it to approach its victims in the guise of their loved ones, but understanding this ability also helped the Cetra develop strategies to combat it. The war against Jenova lasted several years, during which many Cetra sacrificed themselves to protect not just their own people, but all life on the planet. They developed new applications of their healing abilities, learning to purify small areas of Jenova's influence. They created barriers of spirit energy that could prevent the virus from spreading, but the cost was enormous. Each ritual required immense spiritual energy, often claiming the lives of those who performed them. Finally, through a combination of their most powerful spirit energy techniques and the sacrifice of many of their greatest healers, the surviving Cetra managed to force Jenova into dormancy. They couldn't destroy it completely, but they sealed it away in a containment facility they grew from living crystal, deep within the northern crater. They posted guardians there, knowing that as long as Jenova existed, the planet would never be truly safe. In response to this crisis, the planet itself took action in a way that would shape its destiny forever. Deep within the Earth, drawing upon the life stream's vast energy, the planet began to create its defenders, the weapons. These immense biological entities were like living mountains, each one crafted with specific purposes and abilities. Let me tell you about each of these remarkable guardians. Sapphire Weapon was created as the planet's guardian of the seas. Imagine, if you will, a creature of impossible scale, its crystalline blue armor reflecting the ocean's depths. It was designed to move through water with the grace of a dolphin, despite being larger than most ships. The Cetra records speak of its ability to channel the very pressure of the deep ocean into focused energy beams, while its armor could withstand the crushing pressures of the deepest trenches. Diamond Weapon was the planet's sentinel of the land. Its magnificent crystalline structure caught and reflected sunlight like a prism, creating beautiful rainbow patterns in the clouds around it. Standing taller than any mountain, Diamond Weapon strode across the land, allowing it to cover vast distances despite its enormous size. It was equipped with long-range energy weapons, designed to eliminate threats before they could approach the planet's surface. Ultimate Weapon was perhaps the most versatile of all the planet's defenders. Unlike its siblings, it was created with the ability to transform and adapt its attack patterns based on the threats it faced. Its dark purple armor contained streaks of energy that pulsed like flowing blood, and it could channel the planet's energy through its core to unleash devastating attacks. The Cetra writings describe it as the planet's final judgment. Ruby Weapon was designed as the guardian of the Earth itself. Primarily dwelling beneath the desert sands, it could move through solid ground as easily as fish swim through water. Its crimson armor was layered like geological strata, and its massive claws could tear through any material. It was specifically created to protect the planet's deeper layers, where the life stream flows most abundantly. Emerald Weapon was the deepest dwelling of all the planet's guardians. This magnificent creature, with its green crystalline armor, was designed to protect the underwater Mako Springs, where the life stream wells up from the planet's core. It possessed the ability to withstand enormous pressure and could generate protective fields to prevent the corruption of these vital spiritual fountains. What made these weapons truly remarkable was their connection to the planet's consciousness. They weren't simply enormous creatures. They were extensions of the planet's will, each one containing a fragment of the planet's awareness. They could communicate with each other across vast distances, coordinating their actions like cells in an immune system. The weapons were designed with an incredible ability to regenerate using the planet's energy, making them nearly immortal as long as they remained connected to the life stream. Their crystalline armor wasn't just for protection, it served as a conduit for the planet's energy, allowing them to channel massive amounts of power when needed. However, in what might be seen as a mercy, these colossal defenders were never deployed during the original Jenova crisis. The Cetra managed to seal away the calamity before the weapons were needed. The planet then placed its guardians in a state of dormancy, hiding them away in various locations around the world, beneath the seas, within the earth, and under the desert sands. There they would sleep, ready to awaken should the planet ever face another existential threat. Let's move forward in time now, to a more recent era, the rise of the Shinra Electric Power Company. In the beginning, Shinra was a modest weapons manufacturer, creating arms for small regional conflicts. The company was founded by the first president Shinra's father, who had a particular talent for identifying promising technologies and market opportunities. The company's first major breakthrough came during a time of global technological advancement. Shinra's weapons division had developed particularly efficient engines for their military vehicles, and this expertise in energy systems would prove crucial in their future endeavors. They began expanding into peaceful applications of their technology, creating generators and power systems for towns and cities. But everything changed when a young researcher in Shinra's science division made an extraordinary discovery. While studying ancient Cetra texts found in archaeological digs, they identified references to the planet's spirit energy, what we now know as Mako. This researcher theorized that this energy could be harvested and converted into electrical power. The process would eventually be refined into what we know as Mako extraction. The first Mako reactor was small, barely larger than a traditional power plant. Built in the mountains near what would later become Midgar, it proved that Mako energy could provide power thousands of times more efficient than traditional fuel sources. The reactor's success was beyond anything Shinra had imagined. A single facility could power several cities. President Shinra, recognizing the immense potential of this discovery, began a careful campaign of corporate expansion. Rather than immediately pushing for global dominance, Shinra offered their technology to cities experiencing energy crises. They presented Mako energy as a clean, efficient alternative to traditional power sources. Towns and cities eagerly signed contracts, not fully understanding the long-term implications. With each new reactor, Shinra's influence grew. They established a pattern. First, build a reactor near a population center. Then, offer jobs and security to the local population. Finally, gradually assume control of local governance through economic leverage. They called this process urban development, but it was really a subtle form of corporate colonization. The company reorganized itself into distinct departments, each with its own sphere of influence. Urban development handled the planning and construction of new cities. The science department continued research into Mako applications. Public safety maintenance kept order. The space program promised new frontiers. The weapons development department maintained their military edge. Each department had its own director, reporting directly to President Shinra. But it was the construction of Midgar that truly cemented Shinra's power. Imagine a city of unprecedented scale, a massive circular plate suspended 50 meters above the ground, supported by 8 enormous pillars. Each sector of the city would be powered by its own Mako reactor, showcasing Shinra's technological prowess and seemingly unlimited energy supply. The city's design was a physical manifestation of Shinra's philosophy. Above the plate, people lived in comfort and luxury, enjoying all the benefits of Mako energy. The plate itself became a symbol of ascension. Those who proved their worth to Shinra could literally rise above their origins. Below, in the slums, people lived in perpetual twilight, their homes built from the remnants of older settlements. Shinra Tower, rising from the center of Midgar, became the physical embodiment of the company's power. 70 stories tall, it housed all of Shinra's major departments and served as both corporate headquarters and seat of government. The building's upper floors, where the executives worked, offered views above the smog that constantly surrounded the city, a literal rise above the consequences of their actions. To maintain their power, Shinra created various specialized groups. The Turks, officially known as the Investigation Sector of the General Affairs Department, handled covert operations and corporate espionage. Even as they expanded their power, Shinra maintained a careful public image. They sponsored arts, entertainment, and scientific advancement. They created a news network that celebrated their achievements while downplaying any negative consequences. Many people genuinely believed that Shinra was leading humanity into a golden age of prosperity and technological advancement. Now, let's talk about one of Shinra's most ambitious and secretive projects, the Soldier Program. Born from the company's continuous drive for power and control, Soldier represented the fusion of military might with Mako energy technology. The creation of Soldier began as a collaboration between Shinra's military division and the science department. They discovered that by carefully exposing humans to concentrated Mako energy, they could create enhanced warriors with abilities far beyond normal human limitations. Those who survived the process displayed increased strength, speed, and cognitive function. Most distinctively, their eyes would glow with an ethereal blue-green light, the mark of Mako exposure. Soldier operated on a 3-tier class system. Third-class soldiers were those who had just completed their initial enhancement process. These individuals served as the program's foundation, handling routine missions and security details. Their enhancement levels were relatively modest, making the adaptation process more manageable. Second-class soldiers had proven themselves capable of handling stronger Mako exposure. They took on more challenging assignments and often served as mentors to third-class members. Their enhanced abilities were more pronounced, allowing them to perform feats that would seem superhuman to ordinary people. First-class soldier was the elite tier, reserved for those who showed exceptional compatibility with Mako enhancement. These legendary warriors were few in number. At its peak, there were never more than a dozen first-class soldiers active at once. Each one was capable of turning the tide of entire battles single-handedly. The selection process for soldier candidates was incredibly rigorous. Potential recruits underwent extensive physical and psychological screening. The program looked for specific genetic markers that might indicate compatibility with Mako exposure. Many candidates who showed promise in initial testing would still be rejected due to potential instability risks. The enhancement process itself was a closely guarded secret. Candidates would spend weeks in specialized medical facilities, receiving carefully measured doses of Mako energy. The process was physically and mentally taxing. Many experienced vivid hallucinations as their bodies adjusted to the enhancement. Some described sensing fragments of memories from the life stream itself, though these experiences were officially dismissed by Shinra. Beyond the physical changes, soldier members underwent extensive combat training. They learned to wield their enhanced abilities and massive weapons with precision and control. The program developed specialized fighting styles that took advantage of their superhuman capabilities, including the ability to perform seemingly impossible acrobatic maneuvers in full combat gear. The psychological impact of soldier enhancement was profound. The combination of Mako energy and cellular enhancement created unique mental challenges. Many members reported heightened sensory awareness, sometimes to an overwhelming degree. They could hear conversations from impossible distances, sense subtle changes in air pressure, and react to threats before they consciously registered them. Each soldier member was assigned a unique sword, custom designed to complement their fighting style and enhanced strength. These weapons, far too heavy for normal humans to wield effectively, became symbols of their status. One of these was the Buster Sword, which would later become an icon of several particularly famous soldiers. The program maintained strict protocols about ongoing Mako treatments. Regular maintenance sessions were required to stabilize the enhancement process. These sessions also allowed Shinra to monitor for any signs of degradation or psychological instability, a constant concern given the experimental nature of the process. Soldier members lived in specialized quarters within the Shinra building. Their living spaces were designed to help them manage their enhanced senses, with adjustable lighting and sound dampening features. They had access to dedicated training facilities, medical care, and recreational areas designed to handle their unique needs. Public perception of soldier was carefully managed by Shinra's propaganda department. They were presented as heroic defenders of peace and progress, their glowing eyes and incredible abilities capturing the public's imagination. Young people across the world dreamed of joining their ranks, not knowing the full price of enhancement. The true cost of the program, both to the individuals involved and to the planet itself, remained hidden from public view. Each successful soldier member represented countless failed candidates, and the long-term effects of Mako enhancement were still not fully understood. Yet the program continued, pushing the boundaries of human potential, forever changing those who underwent its processes. The Jenova project began with a remarkable discovery in the northern crater. Professor Gast Foremis, Shinra's most brilliant scientist, led an expedition that uncovered what appeared to be the preserved remains of an ancient, or so they thought. This finding would set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the world in ways no one could have predicted. Professor Gast was a gentle soul for a scientist of his caliber. His initial approach to studying Jenova was one of reverence and careful documentation. He believed they had found a key to understanding the Cetra civilization, and his early research focused on learning from what he thought were ancient techniques and abilities. The project took place primarily in Shinra Manor, a beautiful but somewhat foreboding building in the mountain town of Nibelheim. The manor's basement was converted into a state-of-the-art laboratory, filled with equipment designed to study and analyze Jenova's cellular structure. Deep beneath the manor, they built a special containment unit to house Jenova's remains. Working alongside Professor Gast was a brilliant young scientist named Lucretia Crescent. She had a particular interest in the theoretical applications of Jenova cells in human hosts. Her research partner was Grimoire Valentine, and together they developed groundbreaking theories about cellular integration and genetic memory. Tragedy struck early in the project when Grimoire Valentine lost his life in an experiment. His son, Vincent Valentine, a member of the Turks assigned to protect the facility, grew close to Lucretia in the aftermath. Their relationship would become another thread in this complex tapestry of events. The project soon split into two distinct branches. Project S, led by Professor Hojo, focused on creating a perfect hybrid of human and Jenova cells. Project G, under Dr. Hollander, took a different approach, attempting to imbue adults with Jenova's abilities. Both scientists were brilliant, but their rivalry would have far-reaching consequences. Lucretia, now working primarily with Hojo, was pressured into making the fateful decision to offer her unborn child as a test subject for Project S. She had been experiencing disturbing visions, glimpses of a possible future that she couldn't fully understand. Despite these warnings, and Vincent Valentine's desperate attempts to dissuade her, she proceeded with the experiment. The process involved introducing Jenova cells directly into the developing fetus. Lucretia's pregnancy was closely monitored in a special facility equipped with the most advanced medical technology Shinra could provide. The pain she experienced was extraordinary, not just physical, but spiritual, as if something ancient and powerful was fighting against the merger of human and Jenova cells. Meanwhile, Project G was proceeding with its own experiments. Dr. Hollander used a different method, administering diluted Jenova cells to both the mother and child during pregnancy. This would later result in the birth of Genesis Rhapsodos. A similar process would be used in the creation of Angeal Hewley. The scientific principles behind the project were revolutionary. They discovered that Jenova cells could integrate with human DNA in ways that defied conventional genetics. These cells exhibited what they called legacy programming, the ability to retain and pass on specific traits and memories across generations. Professor Gast eventually discovered the terrible truth. Jenova was not an ancient at all, but the very calamity that had nearly destroyed the Cetra. This revelation devastated him, and he left Shinra shortly after, leaving the project in Hojo's ambitious hands. He would later meet a genuine Cetra named Ifalna, leading to an entirely different chapter in this story. Lucretia's child, Sephiroth, was born with silver hair and cat-like green eyes, unique traits that hinted at the successful integration of Jenova cells. However, the birth nearly claimed Lucretia's life, and the aftermath left her changed. Unable to bear what she had participated in, she retreated to a crystal cave where she would enter a state of suspended animation, preserved by the very experiments she helped create. Vincent Valentine, who had tried to stop the experiments, confronted Hojo and was mortally wounded. Hojo, rather than letting him die, used him as a test subject for other experiments, transforming him into something no longer entirely human. Vincent would eventually be sealed in a coffin beneath Shinra Manor, where he would sleep for decades, tormented by his failure to prevent these events. The scientific data collected during the Jenova project would form the foundation for many of Shinra's later experiments, including the Soldier program. The project's findings about cellular integration, genetic memory, and the potential for human enhancement would influence scientific research for generations to come. Yet the true legacy of the Jenova project wasn't in its scientific achievements, but in the lives it altered forever. 3 children, Sephiroth, Genesis, and Angeal, would grow up carrying this burden, their very existence shaped by choices made before their birth. Their stories would eventually intersect in ways that would shake the foundations of the world itself. As Sephiroth grew, he became legendary for his combat prowess and leadership. Many young people looked up to him, including a young soldier named Zack Fair. Zack's story, which unfolds in Crisis Core, is both beautiful and tragic. Let's take a peaceful journey through the lives of those who shaped the story of Crisis Core, beginning with Angeal Hewley, a man whose honor and dreams would leave an indelible mark on Soldier's history. Angeal Hewley was more than just a first-class soldier. He was a philosopher warrior whose beliefs would shape the next generation. Born in the village of Benora, he grew up alongside his childhood friend Genesis. His most prized possession was the Buster Sword, a weapon he never used in combat because it represented his family's honor and dreams. Angeal's philosophy centered around honor, dreams, and pride. He would often speak of soldier honor, not as an abstract concept, but as a living, breathing thing that required constant nurturing. His favorite metaphor was that of the wild fox, proud and free, but never taking more than it needed. This wisdom he passed on to his young protege, Zack Fair. As a mentor, Angeal had a unique teaching style. He could be stern and demanding, but there was always warmth beneath his gruff exterior. He would often begin training sessions with philosophical questions, encouraging his students to think beyond mere combat techniques. His nickname for Zack, the puppy, spoke to both his affection for his student and his recognition of Zack's enthusiastic, unbridled energy. Genesis Rhapsodos, Angeal's childhood friend, was perhaps Soldier's most complex figure. A man of profound artistic sensibilities, he was obsessed with the epic poem Loveless, finding deep meaning in its verses about three friends, gifts, and sacrifice. Genesis would often quote from Loveless during both peaceful moments and battles, seeing parallels between the ancient poem and his own life. Infinite in mystery is the gift of the goddess, Genesis would often recite, his love for Loveless going far beyond mere appreciation. He saw the poem as a prophecy, a guide to understanding his own existence and purpose. His theatrical nature masked a deep sensitivity and desire for recognition, always feeling somewhat overshadowed by Sephiroth's legendary status. Genesis grew up in Benora village, known for its unique white-leafed dumb apple trees. He carried this connection to his homeland throughout his life, the sweet taste of Benora white apples becoming a metaphor for innocence and home. His relationship with his adoptive family was complex, marked by both privilege and a sense of displacement. Director Lazard Ducericus held a unique position in Soldier's hierarchy. As the illegitimate son of President Shinra, he carried a burden of secret resentment beneath his professional demeanor. His leadership of Soldier was marked by a genuine desire to help others, even as he harbored plans that would eventually lead to his downfall. Lazard's management style was a careful balance of military discipline and humanitarian concerns. He often protected his soldiers from Shinra's more questionable directives, trying to maintain the organization's honor while operating within a morally ambiguous system. His own dreams of revenge against Shinra would eventually align him with unexpected allies. The Turks played a crucial role in Crisis Core's events, particularly Cisne, whose real name remained a mystery throughout. Despite being a Turk, she showed remarkable empathy and often helped Zack even when it conflicted with her official duties. Her fascination with angels and freedom made her a unique figure within Shinra's strict hierarchy. Kunzel, a second-class soldier and friend to Zack, served as both information broker and loyal companion. Through his messages, he provided crucial context and support, representing the human side of Soldier that often got lost in the grand conflicts. His intelligence network within Shinra proved invaluable throughout various crises. Dr. Hollander, represented the scientific legacy of Project G, his rivalry with Hojo, driving many of the story's events. His obsession with proving his theories superior to Hojo's would eventually lead him down a path of desperation. Despite his brilliant mind, his inability to accept failure would prove to be his undoing. The Turk known as Sung maintained a complex position throughout these events. His unwavering loyalty to Shinra often conflicted with his personal sense of right and wrong, especially regarding Zack and Aerith. His careful navigation of these conflicts showed the human cost of serving a corporation like Shinra. Each of these characters brought their own dreams, honor, and motivations to the story. Together, they created a tapestry of relationships and conflicts that would shape not just Crisis Core, but the entire Final Fantasy VII saga. The events that would become known as the Nibelheim incident began on what seemed to be an ordinary late summer day. The mountain town of Nibelheim, with its traditional architecture and peaceful atmosphere, had no way of knowing it was about to become the setting for one of history's most tragic moments. The mission itself appeared routine. Reports of reactor problems at Mount Nibel had prompted Shinra to send their finest. Sephiroth, already a legendary soldier first class, was assigned to lead the investigation. He was accompanied by Zack Fair, also first class, and 2 Shinra infantrymen, one of whom was a young Cloud Strife, returning to his hometown, though too ashamed of his failure to make Soldier to reveal this to anyone. Their guide was to be a young woman named Tifa Lockhart. As a local, she knew the treacherous mountain paths better than anyone, having spent years exploring them despite local superstitions about the area. The group spent their first evening in Nibelheim's inn. Witnesses would later recall seeing Sephiroth standing alone by the town's water tower that night, gazing at the stars with an unreadable expression. Looking back, some would wonder if he already sensed something calling to him from the reactor above. The next morning brought their ascent of Mont Nibel. The path to the reactor was treacherous, winding through craggy peaks and across unstable rope bridges. The mountain itself seemed to hold secrets, with strange Marco fountains bubbling up from the ground and crystalline formations catching the weak sunlight. During the climb, Tifa shared local legends about the mountain, stories of strange lights, mysterious disappearances, and ancient powers. These tales, passed down through generations, held more truth than anyone realized at the time. The mountain itself had been sacred to the Cetra, who recognized it as a powerful confluence of the planet's energy. At the reactor, Sephiroth discovered the first pieces of what he would later perceive as betrayal. The facility housed pods containing Hojo's failed experiments, human subjects exposed to high concentrations of Mako energy and Jenova cells. Above them all, behind a heavy door marked Jenova, waited what Sephiroth believed to be his mother. What followed was a week of isolation in the Shinra Manor's basement library. Sephiroth sequestered himself among the research documents, reading without rest. The library, with its decades of accumulated research, held the truth about Project S, Jenova, and his own origins. But this truth, filtered through Hojo's clinical reports and fragmented records, led Sephiroth to devastating conclusions. Those who saw him during this time described a man transformed by knowledge. The calm, professional soldier was replaced by someone increasingly distant and agitated. He would occasionally emerge from the basement to pace the manor's halls, muttering about birthright and betrayal, before returning to his research. Zack tried several times to speak with him, concerned about his friend's state of mind, but Sephiroth's responses became increasingly philosophical and detached, speaking of the Cetra's sacrifice and humanity's betrayal. He began to see himself as the heir to an ancient legacy, destined to reclaim the planet from those he now viewed as usurpers. The final night began with flames. Sephiroth, his mind transformed by what he had learned, set Nibelheim ablaze. The fire spread quickly through the traditional wooden buildings, creating an inferno that would destroy nearly everything. But this was just the beginning. Sephiroth's true destination was the reactor, where he believed Jenova waited. In the aftermath, Shinra moved quickly to cover up the incident. The town was rebuilt, identical in every detail, and populated with Shinra employees who were given new identities and memories. The true survivors were few, Cloud and Tifa among them, though both were deeply scarred by the experience. The events at Nibelheim went beyond physical destruction. They represented a fundamental shift in the planet's story. The moment when Sephiroth, Shinra's greatest soldier, chose a path that would eventually threaten all life. The incident's ripples would spread far beyond the mountain town, touching lives across the planet and setting in motion events that would reshape the world. The Nibelheim incident marked the end of an era. Shinra's careful fabrications could rebuild the town, but they couldn't erase the truth of what happened there. In the years that followed, the reconstructed Nibelheim stood as a hollow replica, its perfect recreation serving only to emphasize the authenticity that had been lost. The mountain itself remained unchanged, still holding its ancient secrets, while below, a new chapter in the planet's story began to unfold. After these events, both Zack and Cloud were captured and subjected to 4 years of experiments by Professor Hojo. When they finally escaped, Zack carried a Mako-poisoned Cloud toward freedom, protecting him until the very end. This sacrifice would deeply impact Cloud's psyche, leading to many of the complex identity issues we see in the main game. But we'll return to this part of the story shortly. Let's take a peaceful moment to travel back and explore the story of Aerith Gainsborough, the last of the Cetra. Her tale begins even before her birth, with her mother Ifalna, a woman who carried the ancient wisdom of the Cetra in a modern world. Professor Gast, after discovering the truth about Jenova and leaving Shinra, found Ifalna during his continued research into the Cetra. Unlike his previous studies of Jenova, this encounter was genuine. Ifalna was a true Cetra, carrying the ability to hear the planet's voice, just as her ancestors had. Their relationship blossomed from mutual respect into love, and together they began documenting the true history of the Cetra and their connection to the planet. In a small house in Icicle Inn, far from Shinra's influence, Aerith was born to this union of scientific wisdom and ancient knowledge. Her early days were filled with her mother's gentle teachings and her father's careful documentation of Cetra history. But this peaceful time was tragically brief. Hojo, still obsessed with his research, tracked them down when Aerith was just 20 days old. Professor Gast lost his life protecting his family, and both Ifalna and baby Aerith were taken to Shinra's laboratories. There, they became subjects of Hojo's endless experiments, though Ifalna did everything she could to shield her daughter from the worst of it. They spent 7 years in those sterile rooms, under the harsh laboratory lights, while Hojo attempted to understand their connection to the Cetra. Finally, Ifalna managed to escape with her daughter, but she was gravely wounded in the process, and only made it as far as the Sector 7 train station. There, she met Elmira Gainsborough, a kind woman waiting for her husband to return from war. With her last strength, Ifalna entrusted Aerith to Elmira's care, asking her to keep her daughter safe. Elmira raised Aerith in the Sector 5 slums, in a house surrounded by flowers, a remarkable sight in Midgar's perpetual darkness. Against all odds, flowers bloomed there, responding to Aerith's presence, just as the planet itself did. She grew into a gentle young woman who sold flowers in the streets above, bringing small glimpses of beauty to the harsh city life. Like her mother, Aerith could hear the planet's voice, though she didn't always understand what it was telling her. She had a special connection to the old church in Sector 5, where she tended a bed of flowers growing through the broken floorboards. The church became her sanctuary, a place where the planet's voice seemed clearer, breaking through Midgar's spiritual silence. The Turks, particularly Tsung, kept a constant watch over her. Shinra never lost interest in the last Cetra, but their surveillance had an unexpected effect. Some of the Turks developed a genuine protective instinct toward her. Tsung especially maintained a complex relationship with Aerith, balancing his duty to Shinra with an underlying respect for her gentle strength. In her church, Aerith created a space of peace in the midst of Midgar's chaos. The flowers she grew there seemed impossible, beautiful white and yellow blooms rising from the planet through broken floorboards, reaching toward what little sunlight filtered down through the plate above. These flowers became symbols of hope, small reminders that life could flourish even in the darkest places. Despite growing up under Shinra's shadow, Aerith developed a remarkable spirit, kind but mischievous, gentle but strong. She understood more than she often let on, carrying not just her own memories, but echoes of Cetra wisdom, though she often kept these thoughts to herself. Through her flowers and her presence, Aerith brought something ancient and precious to Midgar, a reminder of humanity's connection to the planet. In her quiet way, she represented everything Shinra had forgotten in their rush for power and progress. Each flower she sold was a small act of rebellion, bringing natural beauty into the metal and concrete city. This combination of ancient heritage and human compassion made Aerith unique, not just as the last Cetra, but as someone who could bridge the gap between the planet's wisdom and human hearts. Her story reminds us that strength often comes in unexpected forms, and that sometimes the most powerful acts are the gentlest ones. Let's follow the winding path that brought Cloud Strife to Midgar, a journey marked by sacrifice, confusion, and the blending of memories. This part of our story begins in the aftermath of the Nibelheim incident, in the shadows of what many believed to be Cloud's darkest hour. For 4 years, both Cloud and Zack were held in the depths of the Shinra Manor's laboratory, subjects of Professor Hojo's relentless experiments. Cloud, suffering from severe Mako poisoning, drifted in and out of consciousness, while Zack remained his steadfast protector. The experiments left Cloud in a catatonic state, his mind struggling to process both the trauma and the excessive Mako exposure. Finally, Zack managed to free them both. Picture, if you will, a former soldier first class carrying his unconscious friend through hostile territory, determined to reach freedom. Cloud, still lost in a Mako-induced haze, could barely move or speak. His mind, trying to protect itself from trauma, had begun a complex process of reconstructing memories, unconsciously weaving together his own experiences with Zack's stories. Their journey toward Midgar was a testament to friendship and determination. Zack would often talk to the barely responsive Cloud, sharing stories of his dreams and his girlfriend Aerith in Midgar, never knowing how deeply these stories would embed themselves in Cloud's fractured psyche. When they needed to rest, Zack would find sheltered places, always ensuring Cloud was safe and as comfortable as possible. As they neared their destination, Shinra's forces finally caught up with them on a cliff overlooking Midgar. Zack placed Cloud in a safe hiding spot before facing the army alone, fighting to his last breath to protect his friend. In his final moments, Zack passed on his dreams and his legacy to Cloud, giving him the Buster Sword, the same sword that had passed from Angeal to Zack, now finding a new bearer. Cloud, still floating between consciousness and unconsciousness, crawled to Zack's side as the rain began to fall. In this moment of clarity, Zack's final words became a cornerstone of Cloud's reconstructed identity. For the both of us, you're gonna live. You'll be my living legacy. These words, spoken with Zack's last breath, would echo through Cloud's jumbled memories. As the rain washed away the signs of battle, Cloud's mind began its final transformation. The trauma of losing Zack, combined with the Mako poisoning and his own deep-seated desires, caused his memories to shift and merge. He began to remember himself in the role of soldier first class, an identity cobbled together from his own experiences, Zack's stories, and his childhood dreams. Cloud gathered his strength and the Buster Sword and made his way down the cliff toward Midgar. His walk was now different, no longer stumbling, but purposeful. His fractured mind had constructed a new reality where he had been the soldier first class, where he had lived some of Zack's experiences. This wasn't a conscious deception. It was his mind's way of coping with unbearable loss and trauma. Arriving at Midgar's train station, Cloud was a changed man, though not in the way he believed. He carried himself with the confidence of a former soldier, the Buster Sword on his back, feeling like it had always belonged there. His memories had become a complex tapestry of truth and protective fiction, all woven together so seamlessly that he couldn't tell where one ended and another began. It was here, in the shadows of Midgar's massive plates, that Cloud would begin his new life as a mercenary. His first job would come from Tifa Lockhart, his childhood friend, who now ran a bar called Seventh Heaven in the Sector 7 slums. She recognized him, but something was different about him, though she couldn't quite place what had changed. And so our story brings us to the beginning of Final Fantasy VII proper, with Cloud preparing for his first mission with the resistance group Avalanche. He carried with him not just the Buster Sword, but also an identity forged from loss, trauma, and the sacrifices of those who had protected him. Though he didn't know it yet, his journey to discover his true self was only just beginning. This confused young man, carrying a weapon heavy with legacy and memories he didn't fully understand, would soon find himself caught up in events that would determine the fate of the entire planet. But that, as they say, is where another story begins. As our journey through the rich history of Final Fantasy VII draws to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on the deeper meanings woven throughout this remarkable tale. Like the life stream itself, these stories flow together, creating something greater than their individual parts. From the ancient Cetra and their deep connection to the planet, to the rise of Shinra and their Mako reactors, we've traced a story of balance and imbalance, of harmony and discord. We've seen how the planet itself responds to threats, creating the mighty weapons as its defenders. And how the life stream connects all living things in an eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. We've witnessed the human cost of ambition through the soldier program, where enhancement came at the price of profound change. We've followed the tragic path of Sephiroth, from legendary hero to fallen angel, and seen how the weight of truth can shatter even the strongest souls. The quiet tragedy of Nibelheim showed us how a single night could forever alter the course of so many lives. In Aerith, we found a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern hope, the last Cetra, tending her flowers in a city of metal and shadow. Her gentle strength and connection to the planet's voice reminded us that sometimes the most powerful forces are the quietest ones. Through her story, we saw how love and sacrifice could echo across generations, from her parents' protection to her own careful tending of life in Midgar's darkness. And in Cloud's journey to Midgar, we witnessed the profound power of friendship and sacrifice. Zack's protection and final gift of the Buster Sword showed us how legacies pass from hand to hand, how dreams and honor can live on even when their bearers fall. Cloud's reconstructed memories remind us that sometimes our minds protect us in complex ways, weaving new truths from fragments of pain and hope. Throughout these interconnected tales, we've seen how personal dreams and larger destinies intertwine. From the smallest acts, like Aerith selling flowers in the streets, to the grandest gestures, like the planet summoning its weapons, every action ripples outward, touching lives in ways we might never fully understand. The story teaches us that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it's as dramatic as a soldier's enhanced abilities, and sometimes it's as quiet as a flower growing through church floorboards. Sometimes it's as grand as the planet's defenders, and sometimes it's as simple as a friend carrying another to safety. Even the concept of the life stream itself offers a comforting perspective on existence. It suggests that nothing truly ends. Energy, memories, and connections simply change form, flowing eternally through the great cycle of life. Every story, every memory, every moment becomes part of this greater flow. As you drift towards sleep, perhaps you'll reflect on how all these threads weave together. The ancient wisdom of the Cetra, the ambition of Shinra, the sacrifice of heroes, and the quiet strength of those who tend flowers in the darkness. Each story flows into the next, just as the life stream flows beneath the planet's surface. Remember that, like the various threads of this story, all our lives are interconnected in ways we might not always see. The choices we make, the dreams we pursue, the connections we forge, all of these ripple outward, touching others in ways we might never know. Perhaps that's the most beautiful message hidden within Final Fantasy VII's complex tapestry. That even in a world of advanced technology and corporate power, of ancient threats and modern conflicts, the things that truly matter are still the simplest. Friendship, love, courage, and the connections we share with each other and our world. Rest now, and let these stories settle gently in your mind. Remember that, like the life stream itself, all stories flow together in the end, creating something greater than themselves. Whether you're new to this world or returning to it like an old friend, there's always something new to discover in its depths. Thank you for sharing this peaceful journey through the history of Final Fantasy VII. May your dreams be filled with floating memories, gentle wisdom, and the soft green glow of the life stream.